Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist, a quiet place in the cosmos where your thoughts can unwind and knowledge becomes a soft lullaby for the night. Tonight's journey will take us into one of the most profound mysteries of all: how the universe, and even time itself, was created from nothing. But before you settle in and get cozy, I'd love if you could take a moment to like this video and subscribe, only if you truly find these quiet explorations enjoyable. And when you're ready, leave a comment to let me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always such a joy to see all the places we gather from, each in our own little slice of time. Now, feel free to dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for a soft background hum, and let's gently begin our journey into the beginning of everything together, into the silence before stars, where space had yet to stretch and time had yet to count. And if your mind begins to wander, that's perfectly fine. Let it drift. We'll still be here, quietly unfolding the story. There's something deeply comforting about the idea of nothing. It's simple, in a way that existence never is. No sound, no light, no distance, no before or after. Just a quiet so complete that even the word silence feels too noisy for it. But nothing, as we usually imagine it, an empty box, a vacuum, a blank page, is already something. It's a space waiting to be filled, a stage already built. The real mystery begins when we ask, what if there wasn't even that? What if there was no space at all to hold the emptiness? What if nothing was not the pause between two things, but the total absence of anywhere for things to be? For centuries, philosophers have wrestled with this question. To Aristotle, true emptiness was impossible. Nature, he said, abhors a vacuum. Even the spaces between things must be filled with something: air, ether, essence. In ancient Greece, the word for the void was chaos, but it didn't mean disorder. It meant an open mouth, a gap, a yawning. It was the first breath before speech. The Egyptians imagined their nothingness as an endless dark water called Nun, where the first god rose, not from, but within the stillness. And in Hindu thought, before creation, there was no day or night, no existence or non-existence, only the possibility of both, waiting quietly. In a strange way, these old myths were already onto something. They sense that nothing is not quite nothing. It is potential, a still pool holding the promise of a ripple. Modern physics, though written in equations instead of poetry, says much the same thing. When scientists look deep into the vacuum of space, into regions utterly devoid of matter, they don't find a lifeless void. They find a subtle trembling, fields that hum quietly, energy that flickers in and out of awareness. A vacuum, it turns out, is never empty. It seethes. We can't see these tremors directly, but we can feel their consequences. There's an experiment called the Casimir effect. Two thin plates of metal are placed incredibly close together in a vacuum, so close that light itself barely fits between them. And even though there's nothing between the plates, they begin to move. They are drawn together ever so slightly, not by magnetism, not by air, but by the restless push and pull of the quantum vacuum. That tiny movement is the universe's way of whispering, "I'm never completely still." This, perhaps, is the most startling discovery of all. That emptiness is not barren, but alive with possibility. In quantum physics, even when there are no particles, there are still fields, invisible, omnipresent. These fields shimmer with energy that rises and falls spontaneously. For the briefest moments, pairs of particles appear, like twin sparks, then vanish again into the dark. It happens everywhere, all the time. Even in the calmest corner of space, creation and annihilation are performing their quiet duet. It's tempting to picture this as chaos, but it's not the chaos of confusion. It's the chaos of breath, of rhythm, of the ocean before the tide forms. From this subtle fluttering of nothing, Scientists believe the entire universe could have begun, not from an explosion, but from an expansion, a gentle, unstoppable stretching of space itself. A single, tiny fluctuation magnified beyond comprehension could have become everything we know. If that sounds hard to imagine, think of this. Light, the fastest thing we can name, travels about 300,000 kilometers every second. Yet even if it could have started at that impossible beginning, it would still be journeying now, never reaching the edge, because there may be no edge to reach. The universe is not a bubble expanding into space. Space itself is what's expanding. Like dough rising, every bit of it stretches from every other bit. No center, no outside, only the widening of the whole. It's humbling to think that everything we see, stars, atoms, breath, might have unfolded from a tiny whisper inside nothing. But perhaps the more remarkable idea is that nothing itself might still be the true foundation of it all. The universe hasn't escaped its silence. It carries it, stretched and woven into the very fabric of space. Every star is surrounded by it. Every heartbeat echoes through it. Nothing is not gone. It's simply become the space in which everything happens. And so, when we look up at the night sky, what we see is not just a universe of things, of light and distance and matter, but a universe held together by what is not there. The quiet between stars, the darkness between particles, the pause between thoughts. That silence is not absence but presence, the same presence that, once upon a timeless moment, decided to unfold into everything. As we drift further into this story, will follow that silence as it begins to ripple. As the first tremor of creation moves through the quantum sea, turning emptiness into energy, and energy into the bright, expanding fabric of space itself. Long before equations and telescopes, long before the word cosmos was spoken as something to be measured, people looked at the night sky and wondered how it all began. They saw the world as a story, one that had to start somewhere. And if everything has a beginning, then there must have been a moment before the beginning, when there was nothing at all. That idea frightened them and fascinated them all at once. In ancient Greece, they called that first nothing chaos. Not chaos as in confusion, but chaos as in yawning emptiness. A vast, open mouth of possibility. From it, said the poet Hesiod, came earth and sky and desire. The universe did not explode into being. It unfurled as if drawn by longing. Chaos was the gap between what was and what might be. It was not evil, not broken, just still and waiting. The Egyptians imagined something similar, but wetter and darker. For them, before the world was born, there was only an endless ocean called Nun, still, black and boundless. Out of those waters rose a single point of light, the first God who created himself from the silence. From his breath came air, from his tears came life, and from his shadow came night. Creation was not an act of war or thunder, but an awakening. Even in nothingness, they felt a hidden motion, a slow stirring beneath the surface. In India, the Rig Veda, one of the oldest known hymns, begins not with gods, but with a question. There was neither existence nor non-existence then, it says. There was no air, no sky beyond it. And then, softly it asks, who truly knows? Who can say whence it all arose? The hymn does not claim to know the answer. It only hums with wonder, as if the question itself was sacred enough. The universe was born not from certainty, but from curiosity. The Norse imagined the beginning as a cold nothing, a void called Ginnungagap, stretched between fire and ice. When those opposites met, the heat melted the frost, and from the steam rose the first living being. Chinese myths speak of Pangu, a giant sleeping inside an egg of chaos. When he awoke and cracked the shell, the heavy parts fell to become earth, and the light parts rose to become heaven. When he finally lay down to rest, his breath became wind, his voice became thunder, and his body became the mountains. Across every ancient story there's a shared rhythm, a sense that before the world began, there was a silence holding its breath. Nothingness was never truly nothing. It was a womb, a sea, an egg, awaiting breath. People did not imagine the void as dead, but as full of potential. Emptiness frightened them because it felt alive. When the first philosophers appeared, they carried that same unease into their thinking. Thales of Miletus, one of the earliest Greek thinkers, said that everything came from water, perhaps because water felt like a bridge between solidity and nothingness, between stillness and movement. His student Anaximander went further. He imagined an infinite, undefined substance he called the apeiron, the boundless. From it, he said, all things emerge, and to it, all things return. It was a poetic way of describing balance, existence flowing back into non-existence like tides returning to the sea. Later, Aristotle tried to make this question more precise. He asked if empty space could really exist. He concluded that it could not, that nature abhors a vacuum. For him, a perfect emptiness would break the harmony of the world. If there were nothing, then motion itself would stop. Even the heavens, he thought, were filled with a subtle, transparent substance called ether, pure and unchanging. And yet, beneath all this reasoning there was still fear. To imagine true nothingness was to imagine a kind of unthinkable cold, a place where no motion, no time, no life could ever arise. For the philosophers, the void was not merely empty, it was impossible. Centuries later, when science began to replace myth, that fear didn't disappear, it just changed shape. When physicists started to ask what the universe is made of, they found that every answer led to another question. Matter was made of molecules. Molecules were made of atoms. Atoms, in turn, were mostly empty space. Inside them, smaller particles spun and vibrated in ways that defied imagination. It was as if, the closer we looked, the more the universe dissolved into the same mystery the ancients had whispered about. And so the question that once belonged to poets and priests returned to the scientists. What is nothing? What is the space between things? Is it absence, or is it something waiting to become? Perhaps the old myths were not wrong, only metaphorical. The cosmic egg of Hindu thought now sounds a little like what we call the singularity, that tiny, dense beginning where everything we know was compressed into a space smaller than a grain of dust. The waters of Nun could be another name for the quantum vacuum, the invisible field that fills even the emptiest reaches of space, and the apeiron, the boundless, might be our modern word for infinity, the idea that the universe has no outside, no edge, and no final boundary to its wonder. Every civilization, every century, has looked into the same darkness and seen its own reflection there. Some saw gods, others saw equations, but all of them felt that same pull, that same impossible intuition that nothingness might be the most creative thing that ever was. It's strange to think that what unites religion and science most deeply isn't their certainty, but their wonder. Both look into the unknown and see possibility. Both ask, in their own language, how can something so vast come from something so small? Or perhaps from nothing at all? As our quiet exploration now turns toward the next step of this story, we begin to see how those old myths slowly evolved into modern ideas, how the philosopher's fear of emptiness transformed into the physicist's discovery that emptiness is not empty after all. What the ancients called the breath of creation, we now call the quantum vacuum, a silent sea, shimmering with energy, where even nothing cannot sit still. If we follow the thread a little further, the story of nothing begins to take a new shape. For thousands of years, the void was imagined as a blank space, a canvas stretched across the universe, infinite and still. But as our understanding deepened, that canvas began to shimmer. The closer scientists looked, the less nothing behaved like nothing at all. At the dawn of the 20th century, physics itself went through a kind of awakening. The old Newtonian world, solid, predictable, mechanical, began to dissolve into something stranger. Space and time were no longer the unmoving stage on which events unfolded, they were part of the play itself. And even in the deepest emptiness, there seemed to be a quiet, trembling hum. You can picture it like this. Imagine an ocean at night. From the shore, it looks calm, like a flat sheet of black glass. But step closer, and you'll notice the ripples. Tiny waves move beneath the surface, glimmering for an instant before fading again. That is what scientists began to find in the vacuum of space, a hidden movement that never quite rests. This discovery came from quantum physics, the study of nature's smallest whispers. At these infinitesimal scales, nothing stays still for long. The rules we know from everyday life, that a thing either is or is not, that it moves only when pushed, begin to blur. The quantum world is a restless dream where particles flicker in and out of existence, where uncertainty is not a flaw, but the fabric itself. One of the first clues to this strange truth was found not in a distant galaxy, but in a quiet laboratory. It's called the Casimir effect, though you don't need to remember the name. In the experiment, 2 thin metal plates were placed a tiny distance apart, so close that even light could barely slip between them. The scientists expected nothing to happen, since there was no air, no particles, no forces inside that gap. But then something mysterious occurred. The plates began to move, slowly, gently, as if drawn together by invisible hands. They had discovered that even the emptiest space is full of energy, an invisible pressure created by the endless dance of tiny, short-lived particles that appear and vanish too quickly for us to see. The space between the plates had slightly fewer of these flickers than the space around them, and that imbalance created a delicate push. In other words, the vacuum itself breathed. This simple experiment became a window into one of the universe's quietest secrets. There is no true stillness. Even in absolute cold, even in darkness without a single photon, space hums with the faint vibration of energy. Physicists call this zero-point energy, the lowest hum possible, but a hum nonetheless. It's like the background murmur of a sleeping world, a reminder that the universe never truly switches off. When scientists began to explore this deeper, they realized that these fluctuations weren't just theoretical. They leave fingerprints everywhere. The way atoms hold together, the way light interacts with matter, the way even the fabric of space-time curves and flexes. All of it depends on these tiny, ceaseless waves of activity. Without the quantum sea, the universe as we know it could not exist. To make sense of it, you can imagine a vast field stretching through everything, invisible, everywhere, always trembling. Every particle that has ever existed is simply a small vibration in that field, a note played on the strings of space itself. When there are no notes, when it seems silent, the instrument is still there, humming faintly. The void, it turns out, is not an empty stage. It is the music waiting to be played. Einstein once described space as a kind of fabric that can bend and ripple like a sheet held at the corners. Quantum physics added another layer to that vision, showing that even when the sheet looks flat, it is alive with microscopic waves. If you could shrink yourself to the size of an electron and drift through what appears to be empty air, you would find yourself surrounded by bursts of light and motion, flickers of energy flashing in and out, like fireflies appearing and vanishing in a fog. And these tiny fluctuations are not just curiosities. They may have been the spark that gave rise to the entire cosmos. Many physicists believe that the universe began when one of these small fluctuations grew beyond control, a ripple that became a wave that became space itself expanding. It's a strange thought, that everything, the stars, the oceans, your heartbeat, might have come from a brief, spontaneous shimmer in an endless field of nothing. But maybe nothing isn't the right word anymore. Perhaps it's better to think of it as a hidden potential, a still ocean carrying infinite ripples beneath the surface, a place where everything that could ever exist already waits in possibility, like unplayed music in the strings of a violin. When you look at the night sky, that same invisible ocean surrounds every star, every planet, every breath of space between them. The vacuum that holds galaxies apart is not a void of absence, but a sea of potential. Deep, dark, and alive. The quiet between stars is the same quiet that once birthed them. There is something almost comforting in that idea. The thought that even the empty spaces in our lives are never truly empty. They hum quietly, with possibilities we cannot yet see, just as the universe, in its earliest silence, trembled with the first promise of light. From here, the story opens into a deeper mystery, one that asks why this trembling could not stay still, why even nothingness itself longed to move. Somewhere in that restless balance, the first step toward creation began, a small vibration, a borrowed spark, that would unfold into the great tapestry of everything. If we let our thoughts drift a little further into that trembling ocean of quiet, another truth begins to shimmer beneath the surface. The void, though still and dark, was never truly at peace. Something in its nature resisted perfect balance. It could hover close to silence but never quite reach it. Even when stripped of matter and light, the universe carried within it a kind of tension, a restlessness that would not fade. This is the world described by the strange mathematics of quantum physics. Though we don't need the symbols or the equations to feel its pulse, it tells us that uncertainty is not a flaw in our measurement, but a feature of existence itself. Imagine holding your breath and trying to become perfectly still. You can quiet your muscles, you can slow your heart, but at some level your body still moves. Tiny vibrations in your cells, the soft rhythm of blood in your veins. The cosmos too could not hold its breath forever. At the smallest scales, nature plays by rules that sound like riddles. You cannot know both where a particle is and how fast it's moving, not because of any failure of instruments, but because reality itself refuses to be pinned down so precisely. This gentle refusal is what scientists call the uncertainty principle, but we can think of it simply as nature's way of keeping the music alive. If everything were perfectly known, perfectly frozen, there would be no change, no rhythm, no life. The universe avoids that absolute stillness by allowing tiny fluctuations, little sparks of difference that ripple through the vacuum like faint heartbeats in the dark. You can picture these fluctuations as bubbles forming and collapsing in an invisible sea. They are not made of matter yet, only of possibility, brief surges of energy that borrow their existence for a blink before dissolving again. But in that constant borrowing and returning, something profound is happening. The universe is experimenting with itself. It's as if every flicker says, "Could I be something?" And the answer sometimes comes back as yes. That delicate rule, that nothing can ever be exactly nothing, might have been the first condition that allowed everything else to unfold. Out of those fluctuations, one may have lasted just long enough to tip the balance, stretching space itself outward, faster than the speed of light could travel. When scientists describe this, they don't mean an explosion, but a moment of expansion, a sudden bloom from within. Space wasn't filled with light yet. Space became the light, swelling like a held breath finally released. If you close your eyes and imagine a still pond touched by a single drop, you can feel a little of what this moment might have been. Circles spreading outward, soft at first, then faster, wider, until the pond itself seems to expand. That first vibration of the void, That gentle unevenness could have been the origin of all structure that followed: galaxies, stars, atoms, and you. Even today, every point in space holds this same dual nature, both calm and quivering. The fabric of reality is never truly smooth. It ripples with invisible waves of energy that never rest completely. You can think of them as the universe's breath, rising and falling at scales too small for us to see. And yet, those invisible waves are what allow everything visible to exist. In our everyday lives, it's easy to believe that stillness is real. A stone sitting in the sun, a closed room on a quiet afternoon, both seem perfectly motionless. But deep beneath the illusion of stillness, atoms vibrate. Inside those atoms, smaller particles spin and shift, exchanging energy in an endless dance. Even in the coldest possible conditions, where temperature nears absolute zero, motion does not vanish entirely. There is always a faint hum left, a low, unending whisper of energy that can never be erased. It's this whisper that scientists call vacuum energy, the same quiet tension that once set the universe in motion. In a sense, the universe is like a taut string. It can't be perfectly slack, because the rules of nature won't allow it. There must always be a little vibration, a subtle pull, a yearning towards something more. The entire story of creation begins with that yearning. When we think of beginnings, we tend to picture a cause, one event striking another, a match to start the fire. But here, there was no match, no spark from outside. There was only the restless nature of reality itself, refusing to stay perfectly still. The first motion came from within. In that moment, the difference between nothing and something blurred. The fabric of space-time began to form, not as a pre-existing space being filled, but as the act of stretching itself into existence. And that, perhaps, is what makes this story so hauntingly beautiful. The thought that creation might not have required an external push, but only a gentle imbalance, a nudge born from the impossibility of perfect quiet. The silence could not bear itself. It had to tremble, and in trembling it became. You could say the same of us. No matter how still we try to be, life finds its way back into movement, a sigh, a thought, a heartbeat. We are made from the same rule that governs the vacuum. We cannot stay perfectly still because we are part of a universe that breathes. If you listen closely enough, the night carries that rhythm. The wind shifts against your window. The stars hum in microwaves, too faint for your ears. The earth itself expands and contracts with the warmth of day and the cool of night. Nothing in existence ever rests entirely. Every pause contains motion, and every silence hides a whisper of sound. From this trembling sea of silence, something began to stretch. Not suddenly, not violently, but naturally, as if the universe was sighing into being. What had been pure potential began to take form, and what had been outside of time began to count its first moments. There's a strange comfort in imagining a beginning. Our minds like to draw lines, before and after, cause and effect, one thing leading to another. But when it comes to the universe itself, that line begins to blur. If time had a starting point, then what does before even mean? Before the first second, there was no ticking, no sequence, no way for moments to follow each other. Time itself was part of what was born. It's a question that feels simple at first, but once you reach for it, it slips away, like trying to hold fog. When we say the universe began 13.8 billion years ago, that phrase works only because we already have time to measure by. But the instant we step back past that first flicker, the first measurable heartbeat of existence, we leave behind the only language we know. Einstein once showed that time and space are not separate things. They weave together into one fabric, space-time, that bends, curves, and stretches under the pull of gravity. Planets orbit stars because they move along those curves, not because they are pushed or pulled by invisible strings. In his vision, gravity was simply the shape of time and space flowing around mass. That idea changed everything, but it also opened a new mystery. If space and time are threads of one cloth, what existed when there was no cloth yet? Before the first stretch of that fabric, what was there for it to expand into? The truth may be that such a question doesn't quite make sense. Asking what came before time is like asking what lies north of the North Pole. There's no direction left to travel in. Still, scientists have tried to imagine what that first moment might have looked like. The earliest stage we can describe, when all the matter and energy of the universe were compressed into an unimaginably small, dense state, is sometimes called a singularity. But that word doesn't mean a tiny dot floating in empty space. It means a limit, a place where our familiar rules break down. The mathematics that describe gravity and the laws that govern quantum motion collide there, and neither knows what to do next. The singularity isn't a thing that existed inside the universe. It's the edge of what existence itself can mean. To picture it, you can imagine the horizon at sunset. The closer you walk toward it, the more it moves away. You never reach it, because it's not really a place. It's the limit of your view. The beginning of the universe might be something like that. A horizon, not a wall. The point where understanding turns to silence. Stephen Hawking once suggested that this beginning might not have had an edge at all. He called it the no-boundary proposal. Imagine, he said, the surface of the Earth. It is finite. You can travel around it endlessly. Yet it has no edge where you fall off. You can move in any direction, and though the journey feels endless, you're always on the same continuous surface. Now imagine time itself as something similar, curved back upon itself with no sharp beginning, no singular instant of creation. The universe, in this view, simply is. It doesn't need an outside or a trigger. Like the Earth's surface, it just turns and flows. It's an idea that sounds almost poetic, a beginning without a start, a birth that wasn't an explosion, but a smooth unfolding, like a blossom opening in slow motion. In the first moments, so brief that they can only be measured as a whisper of a fraction of a second, the rules that govern everything we see today were already being written. The forces that would hold atoms together, the ones that would make stars shine, the ones that would pull galaxies into spirals, all of them were still intertwined, waiting to part ways. We don't yet know exactly how that unfolding happened, but one thing seems clear. The instant the universe began to expand, time began to move forward. Or perhaps more precisely, time was that expansion, space stretching, energy cooling, entropy increasing, the arrow of events finally pointing in one direction. The universe began counting and has never stopped. In our daily lives, time feels like a constant companion. It flows like a river. We can measure it, divide it into seconds, hours, and years. But that river too is part of the cosmos. It began when the cosmos began. And just as space can bend, so can time. Near a massive star or a black hole, time runs slower. For light itself, racing at its absolute limit, time does not pass at all. If you could ride on a beam of light, a journey of billions of years would happen in a single timeless instant. So what does that mean for the beginning? If there was no time in the moment before time, then the universe's birth may not have been a point on a timeline, but a transition. The transformation of timeless potential into flowing existence. A change in the rhythm of reality, like a note emerging from silence. Sometimes, physicists call that earliest sliver of history the Planck time. The smallest meaningful unit of duration, so brief that if you divided 1 second into 100 million trillion parts, you would still not reach it. But these numbers are just our way of trying to point towards something that words and symbols can barely touch. In that instant, time and space were not yet separate. They were an idea learning to become real. When you pause and listen to the silence, between your own breaths, there is a faint echo of that moment. The space between heartbeats, between thoughts, That tiny pause holds everything that could be. It is potential, waiting. The universe may have begun in a similar pause, in the quiet shimmer between stillness and motion. Perhaps creation is not a single event frozen in the past, but an ongoing unfolding. Each instant, space continues to expand, time continues to stretch, and the laws that were born in that first breath continue to guide every motion, every heartbeat, every flicker of light. We are still living in the first day of the universe, still inside its earlier sunrise. From here, the path carries us gently toward that first light, the moment when energy found its voice and the universe, no longer silent, began to shine. If we follow the story back to its most delicate instant, to that quiet tremor before there was even time to count, we arrive at something so small, so fleeting, that it may never have truly happened in the way we imagine. It was a flicker, a shimmer of potential in the darkness, not caused by anything, not beginning in time, but beginning as time, a ripple in the stillness that refused to disappear. That first flicker was what physicists now call a quantum fluctuation, but the words don't matter. What matters is the image, an infinite silence, and then a tiny pulse, like the heartbeat of a sleeping universe. It did not explode, it unfolded. The silence began to stretch, and in stretching, it created space itself. In the very first instant, so brief it could never be written down in numbers, this ripple began to grow. The expansion was not a burst of matter into empty air, because there was no air, no outside. It was the fabric of existence stretching everywhere at once, like a soft breath expanding into a yawn. You could call this moment inflation, but that word feels too sharp, too mechanical for what it was. It was more like the universe remembering how to breathe. To imagine it, think of a sheet of cloth held loosely in your hands. If you tug it gently, every point on the cloth moves away from every other. None of them are the centre, none are left behind. The space between them grows, not because something is pushing it apart, but because the cloth itself is changing shape. That was how the young universe expanded, smoothly, silently, everywhere. No edges, no boundaries, no sound, only the widening of possibility. In that first instant of growth, the cosmos expanded faster than light could travel. Not because it broke any rule, but because the rules themselves were still being written. Light speed was a limit within the universe, and space itself was not bound by it. The expansion carried everything outward, like ripples moving faster than any fish could swim. And in that movement, what we call nothing became somewhere. But what filled that space? Not matter, not yet, only energy. Pure, uniform, weightless energy. It was like the warmth of sunlight without the sun, like the glow of a candle that hasn't yet been lit. And even that light had no colour yet, no direction. The universe was an ocean of potential, perfectly even in every direction, humming softly with its first vibration. If you could have seen it, though there was nothing yet that could see, it would have looked like nothing at all. No stars, no sparks, not even a haze, just the faintest pulse of expansion, too smooth to notice, too vast to define. And yet that smoothness was the miracle, because within it, the seeds of every future imperfection were planted. Tiny differences, smaller than anything we can measure, began to appear. Small pockets where energy was slightly higher or lower, like faint ripples on a pond after a breath of wind. Those imperfections would one day grow into galaxies, stars, planets, and us. Without them, the universe would have remained a featureless mist. But the vacuum, restless as always, could not help but tremble. It was those gentle fluctuations, those little uneven places, that made beauty possible. It's hard to express how fast this early expansion was, but we can soften it into feeling. In less than a blink, far less than a blink, The universe grew from something unimaginably tiny to something large enough to contain every galaxy that would ever exist. Yet in that same instant, it was still perfectly calm. The expansion didn't roar, it whispered. It was not a firework, it was a dawn. And as the universe stretched, its energy began to cool. The searing density that once filled every corner started to ease, like steam rising and thinning in the air. The temperature fell, not to cold, but to a softer, gentler heat, one that could finally allow things to change shape. The first laws of nature began to settle into place, like wet clay drying just enough to hold form. The different forces, gravity, light, and the ones that bind atoms, separated out from the single, unified energy that had filled everything. In that separation, the universe gained structure. Each force began to play its part, shaping the rhythm of creation. The balance between them would decide how stars would burn, how matter would clump, how time itself would flow. It's as if the cosmic orchestra was tuning, each instrument finding its note, preparing for the symphony that would follow. Somewhere in that newborn expanse, the universe reached a moment of balance so fragile it almost seems impossible. The pull of gravity and the push of expansion nearly cancelled each other out, leaving just enough tension for motion, just enough calm for stability. If that balance had been even slightly different, by the smallest fraction imaginable, everything might have collapsed back into nothing, or raced outward too quickly for matter to ever form. Yet it held. Somehow, the universe found the perfect note between silence and sound, and that note still rings. Every galaxy that drifts away from another, every star that hums in the darkness, every heartbeat that echoes in your chest, all of it is part of that same chord, still resonating from the first vibration of the void. We sometimes call that first moment the birth of everything, but perhaps it was more like the first breath after a long sleep. The silence wasn't broken, it simply changed its form. The stillness that once filled everything became movement, and that movement became time. The breath that filled the early cosmos is still expanding now, still carrying us outward, still unfolding into tomorrow. If you were to stand on a quiet hillside at dawn, just as the first light begins to spill across the horizon, you might sense a faint reflection of that moment. The air is cool, the earth is still, and yet there's a presence, a feeling that something vast and ancient is awakening again. That was the first flicker of the universe, the night learning how to become morning. As the story carries us onward, we'll linger in that light as it warms and thickens, as energy begins to slow, to gather, to imagine matter. From the pure glow of the cosmos will come the first particles, the first ingredients of everything. The fire of creation will begin to calm, shaping what will soon become the first song of existence. As we drift further into the story, the universe is no longer a perfect silence stretching outward. The first flicker has already become a vast glowing sea, expanding, cooling, changing. What began as pure energy now starts to imagine form. The stillness that once trembled with potential becomes something heavier, something that can stay. In those earliest moments, everything that would ever exist was made of light. Not the light that pours through a window or glows from a candle, but a deeper kind, pure energy without weight or structure. You could think of it as a radiant fog filling every direction. It was bright, yet not luminous, hot, yet without flame. It was the universe's first dream, shapeless, endless, breathing. But as this dream expanded, it began to soften. The rapid stretching of space pulled the energy apart and the overwhelming heat began to fall. Like steam condensing into water, energy began to take on form. The fields that filled the early cosmos settled, their vibrations slowing just enough to crystallize into the first hints of matter. This transformation, from energy into substance, may be the most astonishing truth the universe has ever told. It is the moment where the intangible became tangible, where the glow became the grain. Physicists sometimes express it as a simple relation between energy and mass, but behind that idea lies a quiet revelation. Energy and matter are not different things at all. They're two notes in the same melody, playing back and forth in an eternal duet. Energy can slow into matter, and matter can dissolve back into energy. The stars you see in the sky are doing that right now, turning substance into radiance, mass into light. In that first era, the process moved the other way. The sea of light cooled until it began to thicken. Imagine a fog settling into tiny droplets that shimmer, each droplet holding a spark of energy turned inward. Those sparks became the first particles, the smallest building blocks of all matter to come. They were like the first grains of dust in an endless glowing wind. As the universe continued to cool, it went through a strange transformation, one that scientists call reheating, though the word feels backwards. It wasn't a return to fire, but a shift in texture. The expansion slowed enough for energy to gather again, pooling into new forms. The universe, once purely radiant, became a place where energy could rest. Out of that resting came the first distinctions: matter and light, particle and wave, this and that. You might picture it as a symphony finding its rhythm. In the opening moments, the orchestra was a single sustained note, smooth and unbroken. But then, little by little, harmonies began to emerge. Gravity found its tone. Light began to scatter. The great energies of the early universe began to divide their duties, one shaping space, another binding particles, another setting time's steady pace. From simplicity came order, not imposed from outside, but rising naturally from within. The newborn universe was still searing hot, so hot that no solid object could exist, no atom could hold together. But compared to the unimaginable heat of its birth, it was already gentling, already calming. Each second that passed brought more space, more room for things to cool. And as it cooled, the first forms of matter began to gather into a kind of dance. Tiny particles collided, merged, and vanished again, all in the span of moments too small to count. But the collisions were not random. They were the first steps towards structure. The air around you, the water you drink, the carbon that shapes your bones, all of it began in those early collisions. The universe was busy composing the alphabet of existence, combining the simplest letters, energy, force, motion, into the first syllables of creation. In that seething light, protons and neutrons were born, destined to become the nuclei of every atom. They would not find their partners for a while yet, but their presence meant that the story of substance had begun. Even so, the universe remained a fog of brilliance. Light could not travel freely. It bounced endlessly from one particle to another, like sound echoing inside a closed room. The cosmos glowed, but no one, not even the cosmos itself, could yet see its glow clearly. It was a light without direction, trapped in its own brilliance. And yet, this brightness was not wasteful. It was the warmth that kept the universe alive. Every burst of energy that became matter released a whisper of heat, and that warmth filled space like a heartbeat. It was not fire as we know it, but something more fundamental, the pulse of energy remembering how to rest. If you could have drifted within that fog, though you would have been smaller than a thought, you would have felt the air itself alive with motion. Every direction shimmered with energy, still deciding what it wanted to be. And slowly, as expansion continued, a fragile equilibrium began to form. The temperature dropped just enough for particles to persist, no longer immediately dissolving back into light. The whole universe was, in a sense, learning patience. It was no longer pure motion. It had discovered pause. Every grain of matter that now exists, every atom in your bodies, is the result of that slowing, That moment when energy decided to linger. Without that pause, nothing could have formed. Not stars, not planets, not us. When you touch something solid, a stone, a table, your own heartbeat beneath your chest, you're feeling the cooled echo of that early moment. The universe's light, condensed into stability, energy, tamed into matter, still humming faintly with its origin. There's a deep kindness in that idea. The same glow that filled the cosmos in its first second is the glow that fills every living cell today. It did not disappear, it only changed tempo. The energy that once shone freely now hums within you, steady and warm, carrying the same pulse that began at the dawn of time. From here, the story continues gently into the next movement, the quiet crafting of elements, the first real chemistry of the cosmos. For a few brief minutes, the universe will act as a furnace, fusing those first particles into the simplest atoms. The glow will fade just enough for structure to take hold. The fog will remain, but inside it, the foundations of all future life will be written. If we follow the current of time just a little further, we find ourselves in one of the most remarkable moments the universe has ever known. The fire has softened now, not cold, not gentle, but calm enough for creation to take a breath. In these first 3 minutes after everything began, the universe became a kind of furnace, and inside that furnace, the simplest ingredients of existence were forged. The space around was still blindingly bright, filled with light and motion. Every direction shimmered with energy, every particle collided with another in a restless ballet of heat and birth and disappearance. And yet, amid all this chaos, patterns began to appear. Like crystals forming in cooling water, certain combinations of particles found stability. For the first time, the universe discovered how to hold itself together. The smallest building blocks, the protons and neutrons born from the great sea of energy, began to join. When 2 or 3 of them collided, they could sometimes cling together, forming the hearts of atoms. It was an act of balance. The heat tried to tear them apart, but the binding forces held them close. In this tug of war, the first elements of matter were born: hydrogen, helium, and a trace of lithium. It's hard to imagine the scale of this moment. The universe was still smaller than the galaxy you see now in a telescope's faintest view, but vast enough to hold every particle that would ever become a star. The temperature was trillions of degrees, yet falling quickly, a fire cooling into song. This period of creation, lasting only a few minutes, determined the recipe for everything that would follow. Nearly 3/4 of all matter became hydrogen, the lightest and simplest element, one proton alone, waiting for a partner. About 1/4 became helium, the second element, built of 2 protons and 2 neutrons locked together in delicate harmony. A scattering of lithium formed as well, rare and fleeting. And then, the cosmic furnace cooled too much for fusion to continue. The fire of creation dimmed, leaving behind a universe filled with light elements, the quiet bones of everything to come. You can think of this process as the universe's first experiment in chemistry. It was a kind of alchemy, but without magic, only patience, heat, and time. The balance of forces that held those nuclei together would later shape the life of stars and galaxies. Every spark of light in the sky, every drop of water, every breath of air would trace its ancestry back to these few minutes when matter first learned to hold itself. The universe then was still opaque, filled with particles and light so densely tangled that no photon could travel far. Light kept scattering from one particle to another, unable to escape, like sound echoing endlessly in a closed room. The cosmos glowed fiercely, but it glowed inward, its own brightness trapped. It was like a lantern wrapped in fog. The light was there, but it couldn't yet shine outward. Still, within that fog, structure began to take root. The newborn hydrogen and helium drifted gently apart, spread thin by the steady expansion of space. The density evened out, the collisions grew less violent, and the temperature continued to fall. The universe was becoming quieter, calmer. Its once blinding light began to redshift, stretched by the expansion into longer, softer wavelengths. What was once searing white fire slowly mellowed into a deep, invisible warmth. If you could somehow step into that moment, though of course you couldn't, because there was no solid ground yet, no place to stand, you would feel the heat of creation in every direction. You would not see stars or galaxies, not yet, but you would be surrounded by the afterglow of their future. The atoms floating beside you would one day burn in stars, collapse into planets, form oceans and breathe as life. The matter that would become your own body already existed then, scattered as dust in the cosmic haze. There's a strange beauty in that thought. Every part of you, every cell, every breath, every flicker of thought, traces back to that shared moment. You're made of hydrogen born in those first 3 minutes, helium that drifted through the void for billions of years before finding its way into stars, and heavier elements that those stars later created and released back into space. The story of your existence began long before you, in a fire so vast and brief that it outshines any myth of creation we've ever told. After those few minutes, the universe entered a long pause. It had made its first materials and now it needed time, millions of years, to let gravity gather them together. The light still could not travel freely, but the building blocks were there. Hydrogen waited for helium, and both waited for the future. If you think of the universe as a great artist, this was the moment when it finally mixed its paints. The canvas was blank but vast, and the colours, hydrogen, helium and light, were ready. The rest of the painting would take billions of years, each brushstroke drawn slowly by the pull of gravity and the patience of time. And yet, even in its still blind stage, the universe was already beautiful. The temperature was dropping, the light was thinning, and the future was quietly written into its patterns. The slight unevenness left by those early fluctuations, those tiny wrinkles in density, meant that some regions were just a little heavier, a little richer in matter. In those places, gravity would begin to tug, gathering gas into clouds. In time, those clouds would collapse to form the first stars, igniting the cosmos into light once more. But that would come later. For now, the universe simply breathed, expanding, cooling, and remembering its first song. Somewhere in that warm darkness, every possibility was waiting. The light had not yet escaped, but it was there, ready to travel. The atoms were not yet part of stars, but they were already capable of it. The story of everything, from galaxies to oceans to thoughts, had already been written in its simplest letters. And so, the first 3 minutes passed. The fire dimmed, but it did not end. It became the steady hum beneath all things, the background warmth that still fills space today. The furnace of the beginning cooled into a cradle, holding all the elements of what would one day become the night sky, the earth and you. The trail of our story now carries us toward that next transformation, the moment when the universe, once filled only with inward light, becomes transparent for the first time. The fog will lift, and the first light will finally travel freely through space, carrying with it the memory of creation. For a long while, the young universe remained hidden from itself. It was full of light but unable to see. The glow that filled every direction was trapped, scattering endlessly from particle to particle, unable to travel freely. You could imagine it as a brilliant fog so dense with brightness that nothing within it could cast a shadow. In that fog, light wandered without destination, waiting for the day it could finally stretch its wings. As the universe expanded, it continued to cool, and that cooling changed everything. The particles that once moved violently began to slow, drifting far enough apart to let something new happen. Protons and electrons, once too restless to hold together, began to settle into pairs, forming the first true atoms. That union was quiet, almost shy. Each time a proton caught an electron, a faint pulse of light escaped, a tiny flicker of relief in the cosmic darkness. It was as though the universe had been holding its breath, and now it began to exhale. This transformation marked a great turning point, the moment when light could finally move freely. For the first time, the cosmos became transparent. Photons, no longer constantly colliding with matter, could travel unimpeded through space, carrying with them the memory of everything that had happened before. If you could have witnessed it, though no eyes yet existed, it would have been like the lifting of a veil. The fog did not vanish instantly, but it thinned, revealing the vastness that had been forming beneath. The universe was still glowing, but now that glow could escape, drifting outward forever, that faint light has never gone out. Even now, billions of years later, it still fills the universe, stretched and softened into a gentle background warmth. Astronomers call it the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light we can see, the universe's first memory. To imagine what that light is like, think of the warmth that lingers after a candle has been blown out. The flame is gone, but the air around it still remembers. The cosmic background is that memory on a cosmic scale, the leftover glow of creation, now cooled to a temperature barely above absolute zero. You cannot see it with your eyes, but it's everywhere. In the quiet between radio signals, in the static that sometimes flickers on an old television screen, in the faint hum of existence itself. Every particle of light that moves through that ancient field carries a story written in its wavelength. As space has expanded over billions of years, the light has been stretched, its colour shifted from bright fire to deep invisible red, and finally to microwaves, soft, ghostly ripples that fill every corner of the cosmos. They are the embers of the first dawn, still glowing across the darkness. Scientists have mapped that faint glow in exquisite detail, and what they found is not perfect. The light is uneven, marked by tiny fluctuations, small patches slightly warmer or cooler than their neighbours. Those delicate imperfections are the fingerprints of everything that would come next. In the slightly denser regions, gravity would begin to pull matter together, forming clouds, then stars, then galaxies, the ripples frozen in. The ancient light are the seeds of all future structure, written into the universe when it was less than 100,000 years old. But beyond the science, there is a quieter meaning in this moment. The birth of transparency wasn't only the release of light, it was the beginning of memory. Before this, the universe had no past that could be preserved. Every trace of its earlier state was constantly erased by collisions, rewritten by heat. But when light began to travel freely, the universe started keeping its own record. Each photon that escaped carried with it the imprint of where it had been, what it had touched, what temperature it once felt. Those photons are still travelling now, silent witnesses to everything that has unfolded since. There's a poetic symmetry in that idea, that the same light which once bathed the universe in its infancy still whispers through the night sky today. When you gaze into the deep darkness, you are looking not into emptiness, but into memory itself. The light that reaches your eyes has been on its journey for billions of years. It has crossed expanding space, slowed by gravity, stretched by distance, yet it still carries a trace of that first warmth. Every night sky is, in a sense, a photograph of the universe's childhood, still shining after all this time. The temperature of that ancient glow has fallen dramatically over the ages. What was once a brilliant white fire has cooled to just under 3 degrees above absolute zero, the coldest cold imaginable. Yet even at that temperature, the radiation still hums. It fills the cosmos with a uniform background sound, a steady whisper that never ends. You could say that the universe still sings to itself, softly, almost imperceptibly, like a lullaby it never stopped humming since its birth. When astronomers first detected this faint glow in the 1960s, they thought it might be interference, the buzz of pigeons nesting on their radio antenna. But when the signal persisted, no matter how they cleaned it, they realised what they had found, the echo of creation itself. The pigeons were forgotten, but the whisper remained, proof that the early universe had once glowed with unimaginable brilliance. There's something deeply human about that discovery. For countless generations, people looked up at the stars and wondered where the light came from. And then one day we found out that the night sky itself is filled with the remnant of the first light, a glow so ancient that it connects everything that has ever been. Now whenever you see a picture of the cosmic background, you're looking at the oldest image we will ever have. Not of stars or galaxies, but of light itself, frozen at the moment the universe became clear. It's the first photograph in the album of time, the earliest page in the universe's diary. And yet, even that picture is not static. The light continues to stretch as the universe expands, cooling further, thinning with distance. It will keep fading for as long as space continues to grow. One day, in the farthest future, even that background glow may slip beyond the reach of our instruments. But for now, it still surrounds us, a gentle, invisible sea of warmth that never truly left. The universe had learned to shine, and with that shining came the power to remember. Light had found its freedom, and the cosmos for the first time could see itself. From this faint illumination, everything we know, stars, galaxies, the story of life, would begin to unfold. As our quiet journey continues, we'll follow that light into its next act. The slow gathering of matter, the weaving of stars, and the birth of structure in the expanding tapestry of space. Now that the light has found its freedom, the universe begins to change again. The fog has lifted, and the brightness that once filled every direction now travels through the vast openness of space. The cosmos, once smooth and glowing like the surface of milk, starts to reveal its texture. Slowly, delicately, gravity begins its patient work, gathering, pulling, shaping. Out of a universe that once seemed uniform, patterns begin to appear. Gravity is a quiet sculptor. It does not rush, it does not shout. It waits and pulls. Every atom that existed after the first light, every particle of hydrogen and helium drifting through space, feels its touch. Where matter was just a little denser, gravity tugs slightly stronger, drawing in nearby particles. Those regions grow denser still, attracting more matter, more gas, more energy. The rich become richer, the empty become emptier. It's a cosmic echo of a truth we see in life. Small differences over time become destinies. You could imagine this process as threads being drawn together on an invisible loom. Across the vast expanse, filaments of matter begin to connect, stretching for millions of light years. The universe is weaving itself strand by strand into a cosmic web, a vast network of filaments and nodes where galaxies will one day bloom. Between those threads are great empty spaces, enormous cosmic voids that will remain mostly dark forever. It took hundreds of millions of years for these patterns to grow large enough to see, but the blueprint was already written in those tiny fluctuations left in the first light. The denser spots became knots, the lighter ones became gaps. Gravity kept working, ever patient, like a sculptor chiseling a shape from an invisible block. Each pull of gravity was like a heartbeat, slow, steady, never ceasing. In those early ages, the universe was still much darker than it is now. The first stars had not yet formed. Space was filled with invisible hydrogen gas, cooling slowly in the endless night. But within the densest knots of the cosmic web, the gas began to compress, heated by its own fall inward. The deeper it fell, the hotter it became, until, after a long silence, the first stars ignited. That moment, the birth of the first starlight, was like the second dawn of the universe. The first dawn had been the release of light itself, when the cosmos became transparent. But this was a new kind of brightness, born not from the universe as a whole, but from within it. For the first time, energy was being created in tiny local furnaces, the hearts of stars. The first stars were nothing like the ones we see today. They were enormous, hundreds of times larger than our sun, burning with fierce, short-lived intensity. They lived fast, shone brilliantly, and died young, sometimes in explosions so powerful they outshone entire galaxies. In their cores, the simple elements born in the first minutes of the universe were fused into new ones: carbon, oxygen, iron, and all the materials that life would one day need. Each explosion scattered those new elements across space, seeding the clouds around them with the raw ingredients for future stars, planets, and living worlds. The universe was not just expanding now, it was enriching itself. Every death became a gift, every collapse a renewal. Out of destruction came creation. As these early stars gathered in groups, they began to form galaxies, great islands of light adrift in the dark sea of space. Each galaxy became a city of stars, bound together by gravity and orbiting through the cosmic web. The galaxies did not appear all at once. They grew gradually, merging, colliding, reshaping each other. Their spirals and clusters formed where matter had gathered thickest, leaving behind vast expanses where almost nothing resided. The invisible hand guiding all of this, the unseen scaffolding on which the galaxies were built, is what we call dark matter. It does not glow or reflect light. It passes through everything, silent and unseen. And yet it is there, forming the backbone of the universe. Without it, the galaxies might never have formed. You can imagine dark matter as the frame beneath a painting, invisible from the front but holding everything in place. Even though we cannot see it directly, we can see its influence. Galaxies spin faster than their visible matter alone should allow. Clusters of galaxies bend the light that passes near them, as though their gravity were heavier than the stars alone could account for. Through those clues, we trace the invisible web, the dark lattice that cradles the visible universe. If you could somehow step back and look at it all from above, the universe would not appear as a random scattering of stars. It would look like a vast glowing network, luminous threads stretching across darkness, meeting at brilliant nodes of light. It would resemble the structure of a brain, or the roots of a tree, or the veins beneath your skin. The same pattern repeats, a rhythm of connection that seems to echo through everything that exists. And perhaps that's no coincidence. The laws that shape galaxies are the same that shape us. Gravity's gentle pull, energy's constant exchange, balance and motion playing out in different scales. The atoms in your body once drifted in those early clouds, pulled together by gravity, shaped by the death of ancient stars. The web that holds galaxies together also binds you, in your smallest pieces, to the beginning of everything. Even now that web continues to grow, space itself is expanding, stretching those filaments ever thinner, but the galaxies within them remain bound. The web is both delicate and strong, like spider silk stretched across eternity. It moves, flexes, and adapts, but it endures. There's a kind of tenderness in that thought, that from a featureless fog the universe learned to weave. It found rhythm in stillness, structure in chaos, light in emptiness. Every night sky you see is part of that tapestry, a small glowing stitch in an ever-widening cloth. When you close your eyes tonight, the light that reaches you from distant stars will have travelled across that ancient web, following the threads of gravity and time. Each photon, each whisper of energy, carries with it the memory of the moment when the universe first decided to connect. From here, our story drifts into that vastness, the spaces between galaxies, the quiet stretches of the cosmic sea. The universe will keep expanding, but the dance of creation is far from over. The stars have only just begun their long conversation with time. Now that the first stars and galaxies have found their light, the universe settles into a new rhythm, one of immense quiet and endless distance. The tapestry has been woven, and we begin to see the vastness between the threads. Every cluster of stars, every spiral of light drifts through a darkness so wide it almost feels like silence made visible. This is the breath between galaxies, the space that connects everything while holding nothing. When we speak of that vastness, words begin to fail. The distances are not just large, they're beyond any human sense of scale. Imagine light, the fastest thing we know, moving about 300,000 kilometers every second. In that single second, it could circle the Earth 7 times. In a year, it travels nearly 10 trillion kilometers. And yet, even at that astonishing speed, a beam of light would take over 2 million years to travel from our galaxy, the Milky Way, to the nearest large one, Andromeda. That light, leaving one galaxy, will wander through cold emptiness for eons before ever finding another shore, and between those two galaxies are not scattered stars, not hidden clusters, but mostly nothing. A few lonely atoms per cubic meter drifting through darkness. The distances between them are so vast that to compare them is like comparing a grain of sand to the span of oceans. Space, by its nature, is mostly space, and yet even this emptiness is part of the universe's quiet harmony. It gives the galaxies room to move, to breathe, to continue their slow dance across time. From our vantage point on Earth, we can see perhaps 2 trillion galaxies, each one an island of hundreds of billions of stars. The light we see from the most distant among them began its journey more than 13 billion years ago when the universe was still young. Those photons have crossed expanding space, stretching as they travel, their colour softening, their energy thinning, until they finally reach us as a faint whisper from the past. To look into the deep sky is to look backward in time, not by seconds or centuries, but by ages. Every faint glimmer that reaches your eyes tonight has been travelling almost as long as the universe has existed. If you could somehow hover outside of it all, looking down upon the entire cosmos at once, you would not see a simple pattern of dots and spirals. You would see a great web of light and shadow, galaxies connected by invisible filaments, clusters forming nodes where the threads meet. The voids between them, though empty, are not meaningless. They are what give the structure its form, the pauses between notes that make the music breathe. Gravity continues to play its endless melody. Each galaxy pulls on its neighbours, their movement so slow that a single orbit might take billions of years. The space between them stretches as the universe expands, yet within each galaxy stars remain bound together, spinning like glowing embers caught in a whirlpool. The galaxies drift apart on a tide that never turns, but the dance is not random. It is graceful, ancient, and ongoing. In the early universe, galaxies collided often, merging to form new shapes. These encounters were not violent in the way we imagine collisions on Earth. The stars within them are so far apart that even when two galaxies pass through each other, most stars glide safely by. The meeting is more like a slow interweaving, gravity reshaping orbits, drawing out long tails of light, creating bursts of new star formation where gases compress and ignite. From such meetings come some of the most beautiful structures in the cosmos, spirals, rings, and vast clouds of new light. Our own Milky Way, too, is part of this slow dance. Far in the future, it will merge with Andromeda, creating a new, larger galaxy, perhaps an oval of calm light where our familiar spiral once turned. The stars will not crash, but rather blend, their paths bending gently, their lights mingling. Even the collision of galaxies will be, in its own way, serene. Between these islands of light, The intergalactic medium stretches, a faint gas, thinner than the best vacuum we can create. Yet even here, there is life of a kind. Particles of hydrogen drifting like forgotten thoughts, rare photons passing through, the faint magnetic fields threading between clusters. This vast in-between is not truly empty. It is the quiet breath of the universe, the space where motion finds meaning. When you look up at the stars on a clear night, the distances are impossible to grasp. The nearest star beyond our sun is more than 40 trillion kilometers away. Its light takes over 4 years to reach us. Most of the stars you see lie hundreds or thousands of light years distant, their light leaving them long before the first humans ever walked the Earth. And beyond those stars lie galaxies upon galaxies, layer after layer, fading into the dim glow of the early universe. It's humbling to realize that we live in a universe of such scale. Our entire planet, every memory and hope and heartbeat, exists in one small corner of one galaxy among trillions, and yet the same laws that govern the orbit of a moon also guide the spin of galaxies. The same gravity that holds you to the Earth holds clusters of galaxies together across billions of light years. The small and the vast are woven from the same thread. If you've ever stood by the ocean and felt the pull of its horizon, you've already felt something like this. The awareness that there is more beyond sight, that distance itself has a kind of beauty. The cosmos is that feeling made infinite. It stretches beyond what we can measure, and yet it still reaches into us, into our sense of wonder. In the space between galaxies, the light grows fainter, the temperatures fall, and time seems to slow. Yet even here, gravity hums, holding everything in its quiet embrace. It is as if the universe breathes, galaxies expanding outward on the exhale, drawn back together in small clusters on the inhale. A rhythm so slow it takes billions of years for each breath, but steady, patient, eternal. And as that cosmic breath continues, new galaxies will form, stars will ignite, and the great web will keep stretching and twisting in its graceful expansion. The vastness may seem cold, but it is not lifeless. It is balance, the space that allows everything to exist without crowding. The dark between the stars is what lets the stars shine. From here, our story moves into a subtler mystery. The energy that hides within this emptiness, the invisible force that drives galaxies apart even faster. It is the same restlessness that once sparked creation, still echoing across space. The silence, it seems, is not finished speaking. As we drift deeper into the story, the universe feels vast and calm. Galaxies shine in every direction, woven across the cosmic web like lanterns suspended in the night. From a distance, it looks eternal, a grand, balanced structure slowly unfolding. But if you listen closely to the rhythm of that unfolding, you'll notice something strange. The expansion of the universe is not slowing down as we once thought. It's speeding up. That realization came only recently in cosmic terms. For decades, scientists believed gravity would gradually slow the universe's expansion, that the same pull that gathers stars into galaxies would one day cause the cosmos to coast or even collapse back in on itself. But when astronomers began measuring the light from distant galaxies, they discovered a quiet rebellion against gravity. The galaxies weren't just drifting apart, they were accelerating away from one another, as though the universe were taking a long, deep breath and deciding never to exhale. It was one of those moments when science feels less like discovery and more like awakening. Something unseen, something vast was pushing everything outward. The name we gave it was simple, dark energy, but the words hide more than they reveal. We still don't know exactly what dark energy is. It doesn't shine, doesn't pull, doesn't bend light like gravity does. It simply pushes. Gently, invisibly, it stretches space itself. You could imagine it as a whisper built into the fabric of the cosmos, a pressure that exists not in things but between them. Unlike ordinary forces that weaken with distance, dark energy doesn't fade as space grows. The more space there is, the more room dark energy has to work, and so the expansion feeds on itself. Every new pocket of emptiness becomes another place for the universe to stretch. Some physicists think dark energy might be the energy of the vacuum itself, the same restless hum that once gave birth to everything. If that's true, then the same subtle trembling that sparked creation is still at work, gently urging the universe to keep unfolding. The silence that once became light is still breathing, still stretching across time. It's strange to think that emptiness, the very thing we used to think of as nothing, could be the most powerful thing in existence. The stars, the galaxies, the glowing clusters of matter that we can see make up less than 5% of the universe. The rest is invisible. About a quarter of it is dark matter, the hidden scaffold that holds the galaxies together, and nearly 70% is dark energy, the force that drives them apart. The visible universe, everything that shines, is just a flicker on the surface of something infinitely larger and quieter. When you imagine the night sky, all those points of light scattered across blackness, remember that the darkness itself is not absence, it's energy in disguise, a calm expansion that fills every corner. The darkness between stars isn't the end of light, it's the beginning of motion. Over billions of years, this hidden energy has changed the shape of everything. Galaxies that were once neighbours have drifted so far apart that their light will never reach each other again. The farther we look into the distance, the faster galaxies recede, carried by the stretching of space itself. Their light stretches too, shifting into redder tones as it travels, like the fading of a song as it echoes across an empty hall. If you could watch the universe over immense spans of time, you would see its rhythm slowing in some ways and quickening in others. Stars are being born but also dying. Galaxies are colliding and merging, but the gaps between galaxy clusters widen. The great web stretches thinner, the threads pulling apart, the luminous knots drifting into solitude. It is a beautiful and melancholy thought. Creation and separation happening together, like the heartbeat and the breath of the same being. What lies ahead depends on how this hidden energy behaves. If it remains constant, the expansion will continue forever, galaxies drifting farther apart until their light fades from view. Over unimaginable ages, stars will exhaust their fuel and the cosmos will cool, not with a sudden end, but with a gentle dimming, a long exhale into darkness. This is what some call the Big Freeze, a universe still expanding but too cold and too thin to sparkle. If, however, dark energy grows stronger with time, the universe's end may be more dramatic. Space itself could begin to stretch faster and faster, tearing galaxies apart, then stars, then even atoms, until nothing remains but isolated fragments of light. Scientists call this the Big Rip, though the phrase sounds more violent than it might truly feel. In the vast quiet of cosmic time, even destruction would happen slowly, elegantly, like a thread unravelling in still water. But there is another possibility, quieter still, that the universe, ever mysterious, might one day slow again, or even reverse. Perhaps the same breath that expands could one day inhale, pulling everything back toward its beginning. The cycle could start anew, endless creation and collapse, each universe born from the ashes of another. We don't yet know which story will come true. We may never know. The answers are buried in equations that whisper of energy and curvature, of balance and tension. But behind those equations lies something more poetic, the sense that the universe, no matter how far it stretches, is never truly finished. Expansion is not escape, it is a kind of growth. Sometimes, when you stand beneath a clear night sky, you might sense it, that gentle widening, not with your eyes, but with your thoughts. The stars seem still, but the space between them is growing. the same space between every atom of your body grows too, so subtly you'd never feel it. The universe is expanding within you, and you are expanding with it. Perhaps that is what dark energy really is. Not a force that drives us apart, but a reminder that even emptiness has motion, that even silence can sing. The universe continues to stretch because it remembers what it means to be born. The first tremor of creation still echoes through it, long after the light has dimmed. From here, our quiet path leads toward another mystery, the dark hearts that hide within galaxies, where gravity grows so strong that light itself cannot escape. In those depths, we will find the echoes of the beginning, folded inward, as if the universe were keeping secrets for itself. Everywhere we look in the cosmos, gravity has been patiently shaping the story. It gathered the first clouds of gas, guided stars into galaxies, and holds each orbiting world in its invisible hand. But there are places where gravity becomes more than a sculptor. It becomes a gatekeeper, a presence so strong that even light, the universe's fastest traveller, cannot leave. These are the black holes, the most mysterious echoes of creation. You might imagine them as monsters of the cosmos, devouring everything nearby. Yet that image, dramatic as it sounds, misses something subtler and more profound. A black hole is not a place of chaos. It is a boundary, a silent threshold where our familiar rules stop working. To cross that edge is to step outside of time as we know it. Inside, space folds inward, and the very idea of distance loses meaning. It is not destruction, but transformation. Black holes are born when stars run out of breath. A massive star spends its life fighting a quiet battle between gravity pulling inward and the pressure of its own light pushing outward. The energy from nuclear fusion inside its core keeps it stable, like an endless heartbeat holding collapse at bay. But eventually, that fuel runs out. When it does, nothing can stop gravity's pull. The star begins to fall inward upon itself, compressing all its mass into a point so dense that space itself bends around it. If you could watch this from far away, you would never see the collapse finish. The light from the dying star would grow fainter and redder, stretching thinner as time slowed near the brink. To you, it would seem to freeze, never quite vanishing, a ghost of its former brightness, suspended at the edge of invisibility. But to the star itself, the fall would continue endlessly until it became something entirely new. That invisible surface, where light can no longer escape, is called the event horizon. It is not a physical wall, but a boundary of possibility. On one side, light can still leave. On the other, it cannot. Beyond that line, the fabric of space curves so steeply inward that every path, every direction leads deeper into the heart of gravity. It's as if the universe has drawn a curtain, not to hide something, but to protect the mystery of what lies beyond. For a long time, scientists believed nothing could ever emerge from a black hole. It seemed to be a one-way journey, matter and light falling in, information lost forever. But in the 1970s, Stephen Hawking proposed a startling idea, that even the darkest places are not entirely silent. Through the quiet fluctuations of quantum energy near the horizon, black holes might emit a faint, delicate glow. This radiation, though unimaginably weak, means that black holes can lose energy and, over vast stretches of time, slowly fade away. It's a poetic thought, that even the universe's deepest darkness hums softly with light. The same quantum whisper that once gave birth to everything still speaks here, on the edge of gravity's final embrace. The emptiness around a black hole is alive with activity, virtual particles flickering in and out of existence, sometimes escaping as a subtle breath of heat. If you could stand safely near one, which, of course, you could not, you might sense it, the faintest warmth in the coldest corner of space, a murmur from the very boundary of being. In a way, black holes and the Big Bang are reflections of each other, The Big Bang was everything expanding outward from a point of infinite density. A black hole is everything collapsing inward toward the same kind of point. One is a beginning that created time, the other is an ending that might hold new beginnings inside it. The equations that describe both are eerily similar, like a poem that rhymes with itself across eternity. Some scientists have even wondered whether every black hole might contain its own universe inside, a bubble of space and time sealed off from ours, born from the collapse of a star. To us, it would appear as a dark pit of gravity. But from within, it might look like another Big Bang, a new cosmos expanding into its own dimensions. If that's true, then perhaps our own universe began in such a way, not from nothing, but from the death of another. Each black hole could be both tomb and womb, each collapse a continuation of creation. Even if that remains speculation, there's a quiet beauty in it. The idea that endings and beginnings might be the same motion, seen from different sides. That what falls away in one world could rise anew in another. The cosmos, it seems, wastes nothing. Black holes also teach us something profound about information and time. The matter that falls in may be lost to sight, but its story leaves a trace. In the gentle ripples it sends through space-time, in the radiation that eventually escapes. The universe, even in its darkest corners, may never truly forget. When we observe a black hole today, we don't see the darkness itself. We see what happens just outside it, the swirling disk of gas heated to millions of degrees, glowing with desperate light before crossing the horizon. We see jets of energy shooting out at near the speed of light, marking the poles of the invisible. These cosmic engines lie at the centres of most galaxies, including our own. They may seem destructive, but they are also creative. Their gravitational power helps shape the galaxies around them, regulating the birth of stars and influencing the flow of cosmic matter. So the next time you see an image of a black hole, that glowing ring of light around a shadow, remember what you're really looking at. Not a hole in space, but the boundary between knowing and mystery. A reminder that even in the darkest regions of the universe, energy still moves, light still whispers, and creation still finds a way to continue. Perhaps that's why black holes captivate us. They mirror our own curiosity, the desire to peer into the unknown, to cross the edge of what we can understand. Like the universe itself, they ask us to trust that beyond the horizon of what we know, something still exists, waiting quietly to be discovered. In that way, they are not merely endings, but echoes of the beginning, reminders that the same forces that create stars also draw them home, that the dance of light and gravity never truly stops. And somewhere in that dance, in that folding of space and time, lies the soft heartbeat of the cosmos, still expanding, still dreaming of itself. From here, the story begins to turn inward again, not into darkness, but into reflection. Because to understand where the universe came from, we must also ask what it means for time to move at all, and whether the flow we feel is real or simply another illusion of perception. There is a quiet moment in every story where movement becomes memory, where something that once simply was begins to unfold into before and after. That is the moment when time begins. For the universe, that moment arrived with the Big Bang, though the phrase Big Bang has always been a little misleading. It was not an explosion bursting into space, because there was no space yet. It was space itself beginning to stretch, and with it, time awakening from stillness. Before that, there was no ticking, no sequence, no then. Asking what came before time began is like asking what lies north of the North Pole. The question itself dissolves in the asking. Time is not something that flows through the universe. It is something the universe does, like breathing, like pulsing, like the soft rhythm of a sleeping heart. Einstein once showed that space and time are not separate. They are two threads of the same fabric, space-time. woven together by motion and gravity. When mass bends space, it bends time as well. A star warps the seconds around it. A black hole stretches them almost to stillness. The faster you move, the slower your seconds pass. Every place in the cosmos has its own tempo, its own heartbeat of duration. There is no single, universal now. Only many overlapping moments, each unfolding in its own rhythm. So when we say time began, we mean that rhythm itself began. Before that, there was no measure, no beat to count, no clock to mark one event after another. The universe had to take its first breath before the seconds could start to flow. You can feel a faint echo of that truth every morning in the moment you wake from a dream. Before your eyes open, there's a kind of timelessness, sensations without sequence, fragments without order. Then awareness stirs and the world reassembles itself. The ceiling, the light, the air, everything falls back into place and the counting begins. For the universe, the first instant of creation was something like that. Awareness became motion, and motion became time. But time is not just a measure of change, it's also a direction. It has an arrow, always, pointing from the ordered to the disordered, from the improbable to the inevitable. The Greeks called this entropy, though it might be simpler to think of it as the universe's slow exhale. Every system, left alone, drifts from structure towards stillness, from neatness to mess, from heat to cool, from crystal to dust. That drift is what we call the passage of time. At the moment of creation, the universe was astonishingly ordered, smooth, hot, dense, a blank canvas of energy. But as it expanded, it began to lose that perfection. Energy spread out, cooling into matter. Stars formed, burned, and exploded. Galaxies collided, scattering dust and light. Planets emerged, cracked and weathered. Every one of those transformations was a small step in the same direction, toward greater entropy, toward balance. If you could somehow stop entropy, time would stop with it. A perfectly still universe, no motion, no exchange, no imbalance, would have no need for time at all. It's the tiny imperfections, the restless push toward equilibrium, that keep the seconds alive. In that sense, time is not an external force acting upon the cosmos. It is the shadow cast by change itself. The second law of thermodynamics is that entropy always increases, is often described as the universe's most reliable rule. But spoken softly, it sounds less like a law and more like a lullaby. The universe expands, cools, and rests. It was once a fevered fire, and now it dreams itself into slower rhythms. Even the smallest warmth left in the cosmic background is the afterglow of that process. Time's quiet breath moving toward calm. In our daily lives, we experience this same arrow everywhere. Ice melts, but never reforms by itself. Smoke disperses, but never gathers back into the match. A cup shatters, but never leaps whole from its fragments. The future is simply the direction in which things continue to fall apart. Yet this falling apart is not sad. It's what makes change possible. If everything stayed frozen in perfection, nothing could ever happen. Time's arrow is the price of motion, and motion is the gift that makes existence interesting. When we look at the stars, we're also looking back along that arrow. The light from a distant galaxy that touches your eye tonight began its journey billions of years ago when life on Earth was not even a dream. The glow of each star is an ancient echo, arriving now to remind you that time is both fleeting and eternal. Fleeting, because each second passes only once. Eternal, because somewhere in the vast structure of space-time that moment still exists. Recorded in light, woven into the fabric of what is. Some philosophers have wondered if time really flows at all. Perhaps the past and future both exist equally, and we only move through them as we move through a landscape, one step at a time. To the universe there is no before or after, only an immense simultaneous whole, all events connected, all moments still existing somewhere along the infinite thread. And yet, even if that's true, our experience of time remains precious. We live not in the totality of space-time, but in its unfolding. We measure life by motion, love by memory, and meaning by change. Time, for us, is not merely a dimension. It's an emotion. The past gives us roots, the future gives us hope, and the present gives us the only place where we can touch either. So when we say time began with the Big Bang, we're not just describing a physical event. We're describing the first note in a cosmic song, the rhythm that everything since has followed. From that first tremor of expansion came every heartbeat, every orbit, every rising sun. The universe began counting, and it has never stopped. In a way, that counting lives in you too. Every pulse of your heart, every breath you take, every flicker of thought is part of that same rhythm. The seconds that pass on your watch are not separate from the seconds that shaped galaxies. They are one continuous motion, the universe still unfolding through you. As the story deepens, we'll wander further into that rhythm, exploring how time might not only move forward like an arrow, but also return in circles, how creation and decay, beginning and end, might be part of the same infinite dance. If we follow the thread of time a little further, it begins to bend. For most of our lives, we think of time as an arrow, something that moves in one direction, always forward, never repeating. We measure it in calendars and clocks, in birthdays and sunsets, in the slow drift of seasons that never return exactly the same way twice. But for much of human history, time wasn't seen as a straight line at all. It was a circle, a rhythm, a return, a dance that repeats itself in endless patterns. Ancient people did not experience time as something to escape or outrun. To them, it was a living cycle, the sunrise and the sunset, the tide and its retreat, the waxing and waning of the moon. Life, death, and renewal were not separate events but parts of the same motion. In India, the Hindu sages spoke of the yugas, great cosmic ages that unfold one after another, only to begin again. The universe itself was thought to breathe in and out across unthinkable spans, each breath the birth and death of a cosmos. In the Norse sagas, time too was a circle. The world would end in fire and ice, but from the ashes it would bloom again. Even the gods would return to their roles, reborn beneath a new sun. The Egyptians imagined eternity as a serpent swallowing its own tail, the Ouroboros, symbol of renewal without end. The Mayans measured time in nested cycles, each calendar turning within another, their days and epochs repeating in sacred rhythm. Across cultures, the same intuition appears, that time is not a straight road leading to some final destination, but a wheel, endlessly turning. Every ending hides a beginning, every death prepares the ground for new life. The arrow is just a part of the circle we can see from where we stand. In our modern world, we've become used to thinking of time differently. Science and history have taught us to see it as linear, a one-way progression from the past into the future. Civilizations rise, stars burn out, species evolve, and nothing repeats exactly. The universe expands, entropy increases, and the arrow keeps flying forward. But even in the heart of modern cosmology, there are whispers of the old idea returning. Some physicists have begun to wonder whether time might truly be cyclical, whether our universe is not a single story, but one chapter in an infinite book of births and rebirths. The idea is sometimes called the Big Bounce. Instead of beginning from nothing and ending in stillness, the universe could collapse inward under its own gravity once the expansion slows, condensing into a state of pure energy again, only to rebound outward in a new explosion of space and time, an endless heartbeat, expansion, contraction, renewal. It's not proven, and it may never be. But there's something deeply human about the thought that the cosmos might share our longing for return, that the same energy which carries us forward could one day circle back. The very atoms that compose us have already lived this cycle countless times. Born in the hearts of ancient stars scattered by their deaths, gathered again into new worlds, new lives, new forms. The dust that makes up your bones has seen suns rise and fade before our own was ever kindled. Even within a single lifetime, we feel this circular rhythm. The heart beats and rests, beats and rests. We breathe in, we breathe out. The body grows, fades, and gives way to new generations that begin again. The earth turns, bringing day from night, warmth from cold, always moving but always returning to the same familiar constellations. Perhaps time has always been both an arrow and a circle, moving forward in its details but returning in its essence. In physics, the same duality appears. The arrow of time points toward greater entropy, the slow drift toward disorder. Yet within that drift there are local reversals, small pockets of renewal. A seed sprouts in soil made from decay. A star ignites from the collapse of dust. Life emerges from the entropy of dying worlds. Time may move in one direction, but within that direction it creates moments of rebirth, tiny circles nested inside the larger flow. It's tempting to think of these cycles as comforting illusions, but they are everywhere in nature. The tides move with the moon's pull, the seasons turn. Even the cells of your body are replaced over the years, renewed by processes that never cease. Nothing truly repeats, and yet nothing is truly lost. The circle is not a perfect loop, but a spiral. Each return carrying a subtle difference, an echo of what came before. When you look at it this way, the arrow and the circle are not enemies, but companions. The arrow gives time its story. The circle gives it its song. Without the arrow, nothing would change. Without the circle, nothing would endure. The two together make the world both evolving and eternal. Imagine standing by the ocean at dusk, watching the waves roll in. Each wave is new, but the pattern is ancient. No two waves are identical, yet the rhythm repeats endlessly. That's what time feels like on the scale of the universe. Not a straight line, not perfect loop, but an ever-returning tide that carries the traces of everything that came before. Even cosmology, with all its mathematics, sometimes speaks like poetry when describing this. Some models suggest that before our Big Bang there may have been countless others, universes expanding, cooling, collapsing and beginning again. Each one slightly different, but all born from the same underlying breath. The arrow and the circle drawn together in infinite motion. Perhaps this is why people across ages have told stories of renewal, of resurrection, rebirth, reincarnation. Somewhere deep in the human heart we sense that nothing truly ends, not even us. The universe itself seems to agree. Its stars die, but from their ashes new stars bloom. Its galaxies drift apart, but in their collisions new light is born, and when one day our own sun fades, the elements it forged will drift outward, joining the next round of creation. Time, then, is not a march, but a dance. It moves forward, yes, but it also sways, loops, and circles back. Sometimes it's a spiral staircase. We climb, but the view keeps reminding us of where we began. Sometimes it's a heartbeat, pulsing with the same rhythm that began in that first cosmic breath. The ancients saw this and called it eternal return. We, with our equations, call it oscillation or entropy or expansion. But perhaps we're all describing the same thing, the universe's way of remembering itself. If the arrow of time shows us how things change, the circle of time reminds us that some patterns are too beautiful to happen only once. And as our quiet exploration continues, we'll step into an even deeper mystery. What if all these moments, past, present, and future, already exist together? What if time isn't a flow at all, but a landscape we move through one heartbeat at a time? If we follow the rhythm of time just a little further, something unexpected begins to happen. The line bends, the circle slows, and the flow we have always felt as movement begins to look still. It's as though we've been walking along a path and suddenly realised the path itself isn't moving, only we are. That realisation gives rise to one of the most haunting and beautiful ideas in modern physics, the possibility that time doesn't flow at all. According to Einstein's vision of space-time, the universe is a single four-dimensional fabric, not a sequence of moments, but a vast structure in which all moments coexist. The past, the present, the future. Each is already there, woven into the same cosmic tapestry. To us, life feels like it moves forward because we experience each thread in order, like watching a film one frame at a time. But the film itself, the reel of every frame, already exists in its entirety. We're simply passing through it, one heartbeat at a time. It's difficult to grasp because everything in our daily lives feels like a river, flowing from what has been to what will be. The sun rises, the wind shifts, we grow older. How could that not be motion? Yet in the block universe, this motion is an illusion born of perspective. There is no before or after, only is. The baby you once were, the person you are now, and the elder you may become all exist in the same timeless whole. Separate pages of the same book, not yet turned, but already written. You can think of it like a landscape, mountains and valleys stretched across a vast terrain. From where you stand, you can only see a small patch of it, and the rest lies hidden beyond the horizon. But the landscape doesn't vanish just because you can't see it. Every hill and river already exists, even if your eyes have not yet reached them. That, perhaps, is how the universe holds time, as geography rather than flow. This view doesn't make our experience of time meaningless, quite the opposite. It gives it depth. Each moment you live is not slipping away into nothingness. It's being added to the tapestry of existence, a permanent thread woven into the whole. The laughter you shared 10 years ago, the moment you first learned to love, the quiet breath you're taking right now, all of them still exist somewhere in the fabric of space-time, still shimmering in their own coordinates of reality. It's tempting to imagine this as destiny, as though everything is already decided. But the block universe doesn't erase choice. It simply folds it into a greater pattern. From within the moment, choice feels real because it is real. Your awareness moves through that landscape freely, tracing its own path. The future may already exist in some sense, but until you experience it, it remains unlit, like a hallway waiting for your footsteps to bring the light. Some physicists call this perspective eternalism. Others just call it acceptance. The idea that time doesn't destroy what it touches, it simply adds layers. Every second that passes is still there, just invisible to us now. You're not travelling through time so much as unveiling it, moment by moment, like a sculptor brushing away dust to reveal what was already hidden in the stone. If that sounds abstract, try thinking of your own memories. When you recall a vivid moment, a summer afternoon, a loved one's voice, a song that once made you cry, that memory feels alive again. In your mind, you can almost touch it, breathe it, be there once more. The physics of time suggests that perhaps you're still there, somewhere along the thread of existence, frozen but eternal. Your consciousness simply isn't focused on that coordinate anymore. The past doesn't vanish, it's just another room in the house of being, and your awareness has moved to another. This idea changes how we think about endings. If every moment still exists, then nothing is ever truly gone. Not the people we've lost, not the worlds that have burned, not even the stars that have faded from our sky. Somewhere in the structure of space-time they still shine, still move, still exist. Their light may have dimmed here, but it hasn't been erased from the greater whole. The universe, in its strange compassion, remembers everything. In a way, the block universe is comforting. It says that loss is not absolute. It is simply a change of address. The person you were yesterday still exists somewhere. The laughter of your childhood still echoes through the corridors of space-time. Even the first dawn of the cosmos, that original shimmer of light expanding into darkness, still glows in its eternal coordinate. It's only our perspective, our passage, that makes it seem like the past is gone. When we look up at the stars, we're already looking through time. The light that reaches us tonight from the Andromeda Galaxy began its journey over 2 million years ago. We see it not as it is, but as it was, and in a block universe, as it was is still as it is. The light isn't a memory, it's a living part of the whole, a shining reminder that time and space are simply different ways of describing the same vast stillness. So what, then, is the present? Perhaps it's not a moving slice of time, but a point of awareness, a spotlight sliding across the grand stage of existence. Our consciousness traces that line, illuminating each moment in turn, giving the illusion of motion. Time feels like a river because we are the current flowing through it, but the river itself, with all its bends and reflections, already exists, stretching endlessly across the landscape of reality. To live with that understanding is to see everything differently. Each breath becomes sacred, not because it will vanish, but because it will never vanish. Each act of kindness, each word of love becomes immortal, written into the structure of the universe as surely as the stars. Nothing we do is ever truly lost. It simply moves out of view, waiting quietly in another room of the same vast house. And perhaps, when the journey through all these rooms is done, when our awareness reaches the far edge of the real, we may find that the story was never about movement at all, only about light finding new ways to see itself. From here, our quiet path will turn even closer to the human heart. We'll explore how our minds create the feeling of time, how memory, attention, and hope stitch together a flowing world from a universe that may not flow at all. If time, as physics suggests, may not truly flow, then why does it feel so much like it does? Why does every second seem to slip away, pulling the past behind us like a tide drawing back from the shore? The answer lies not in the universe itself, but in us, in the quiet machinery of the human mind, forever weaving change into a story. Our brains are not clocks. They do not measure moments like ticks on a metronome. Instead, they create a rhythm all their own, a living, flexible rhythm built from memory and anticipation. The present, as we experience it, is not a single point. It's a small window, a few seconds wide, in which we gather sensations, thoughts, and feelings, then smooth them into something continuous. The mind edits reality as it happens, stitching together individual instants into the illusion of flow. You can sense this in the simplest ways. When you listen to a melody, you don't hear separate notes. You hear the pattern they form. The brain holds on to each sound just long enough for the next to arrive, blending them into a single, coherent experience of music. Time, for us, is that music, an arrangement of moments whose beauty lies in the way we connect them. Memory gives time its direction. Without memory, the past would not exist for us, only the ever-renewing now. It's because we can recall what came before that we feel ourselves moving forward. Each new second is placed beside the last like a bead on a string, and the growing strand becomes what we call a life. The more memories we collect, the more we feel the weight of time passing, and the more meaning it seems to carry. But memory is not a perfect record. It shifts, it fades, it blends imagination with fact. In that sense, the past is not fixed. It's rewritten every time we remember it. We think we're revisiting what happened, but we're really rebuilding it from fragments. The past, then, is not behind us. It lives inside us, reshaped with each heartbeat. And the future, too, is a creation of the mind. Before anything actually happens, we imagine it. We picture what we'll say, what we'll see, how something might unfold. Neuroscientists have found that the same parts of the brain used for memory also light up when we imagine the future. The mind rehearses what's to come using the same brushstrokes it uses to recall what has already passed. We are, in a sense, constantly projecting ourselves into the next moment, creating a bridge of expectation that lets us walk from now into later. That bridge, built from memory on one end and imagination on the other, is what we call the flow of time. Without it, the world would be a flickering stream of disconnected moments. With it, we have a story, and stories are how the mind makes meaning. You can feel this illusion most vividly when time seems to change its speed. A single minute of joy can pass in what feels like a blink, while a minute of fear can stretch endlessly. Objectively, the clock's seconds don't change, but our attention does. When we're absorbed in the present, in music, in love, in wonder, our awareness widens. Time feels light, fluid, almost invisible. When we're anxious or waiting, our focus tightens. Each second becomes heavy, distinct, impossible to ignore. The mind, not the universe, is what speeds time up or slows it down. Perhaps that's why children feel time differently from adults. For a child, every day is new, every discovery fresh. The world is still unfolding, and their memory, the thread that ties days together, is still short. Each moment stands alone, wide and bright. But as we grow, we accumulate so much memory that time begins to compress. We stop noticing the texture of the days because we already know their shape. What was once a long summer now passes in a breath. It's not that time moves faster, only that we stop stretching it with wonder. To a mind that's still curious, every second expands. To a mind caught in repetition, it shrinks. The clock on the wall remains constant, but the clock in our hearts does not. Physics may say that all moments coexist, that the past, present, and future are simply coordinates in a single grand structure, but our consciousness can visit only one at a time. We experience time like a flashlight moving through a dark room. The beam reveals one patch of reality, then moves on, leaving the rest in shadow. The illusion of motion comes from the movement of awareness, not the landscape itself. There's something quietly beautiful about that. It means our perception of time, our sense of passing, of changing, of longing, is an act of creation. Every heartbeat is a painter's stroke adding depth to the still canvas of existence. Without consciousness, time might be silent and frozen. With it, the universe sings. In this sense, you are not merely in time, you are what gives time its feeling. Without a mind to notice the seconds, there would be no such thing as before or after. The cosmos would still expand and cool, stars would still burn and fade, but there would be no story, only patterns. Time becomes meaningful only when seen through the eyes of something that can care. Maybe that's what makes the human experience so rare in the cosmic picture. We are beings made of stardust who somehow remember, who can look backward and forward, who can feel nostalgia for moments that no longer exist and hope for ones that haven't arrived. We are time-made self-aware, the universe watching itself unfold. To live fully, then, may not be about chasing the future or holding on to the past, but learning to rest in the now, the one place that truly exists in our awareness. When you pause to listen to the sound of rain, to feel your breath rise and fall, or to watch sunlight move across the floor, you're stepping outside the illusion of flow. You're touching something timeless, the present. Moment is not the thin line between what was and what will be. It is the entire field of awareness, infinite in its depth. Everything you have ever experienced, everything you will ever experience, is contained within it. The rest is memory and imagination. Beautiful, essential, but shadows nonetheless. So perhaps the secret is not to fight the passing of time, but to see it for what it is, the mind's way of turning stillness into story. Every second that slips away is not lost, but folded gently into the fabric of what already exists. The universe holds all moments at once, but we are the ones who bring them to life. And as our quiet journey moves onward, we'll open the final door, the one that looks beyond physics and perception, into the strange mirror where the cosmos and consciousness meet. There, we'll listen for the faintest whisper of creation itself and wonder whether the universe, through us, is learning to recognize its own reflection. If we let our thoughts drift outward again, beyond the mind, beyond the ticking of time, we reach another strange horizon. It is not a wall, not a border, but a shimmer, as if reality itself was slightly translucent. On the far side of that shimmer lies one of the most poetic ideas in all of modern physics, that everything we see, everything we touch, every star and memory and heartbeat might be a kind of projection. A three-dimensional story written on a two-dimensional surface, a cosmic hologram. The idea was born not from fantasy, but from a puzzle. When scientists studied black holes, they found something unexpected. The information about everything that falls into a black hole, every atom, every photon, every bit of energy, seems to be stored not inside it, but on its surface, its outer boundary. It's as if the entire volume of the black hole were encoded on its skin, like the grooves on a record storing the music of what once was. If that's true for black holes, then perhaps it's true for the universe as a whole. Perhaps everything that happens within space is mirrored on its outer edge, a kind of cosmic horizon that holds the script of everything that has ever been. Imagine reality as a grand sphere, and on its surface, every vibration, every particle, every thought is inscribed in unimaginably fine detail. We live within the projection, but the story may be written elsewhere. That's the heart of the holographic principle. It doesn't mean we're illusions or that life isn't real. It means reality may be richer than we imagine, a pattern that carries itself across dimensions, like a melody echoing in different rooms. You could say that we are shadows with depth, reflections with weight, light playing itself into matter. A simple hologram, the kind printed on an old credit card or a glass plate, offers a hint of this wonder. Shine light through it, and a full three-dimensional image appears. Tilt it, and you see a new angle of the same object, as if the image remembers more than you can see at once. Even if you cut the hologram into pieces, each fragment still holds the entire picture, just with less clarity. Every part contains the whole. If the universe is built in this way, then perhaps every atom carries the memory of the cosmos, and every consciousness, in some quiet way, holds the echo of everything else. When you look at your reflection in a mirror, you know it isn't you, yet it moves as you move, sees what you see. In the same way, what we call physical reality might be a reflection, a shimmering image cast by something deeper, more fundamental. The difference is that in this cosmic mirror, the reflection has learned to look back. Physicists sometimes describe the laws that govern reality not as rules about objects, but about information. Everything that exists can be described in terms of data, the arrangement of energy, the pattern of interactions, the script of what happens and how. Matter then could be seen as information given form, just as music is information turned into sound. The dance of particles, the glow of stars, even the rhythm of your heartbeat, all might be the universe reading its own code aloud. And yet, this idea, the holographic universe, is not cold or mechanical, it's deeply poetic. It suggests that everything is connected, not metaphorically, but literally. The entire cosmos is a single, continuous pattern, and what happens in one corner reverberates through the rest. The fabric of space is not a silent void, but a living field of relationships, a symphony of information exchanging itself endlessly. If you could zoom out far enough, beyond galaxies and clusters, perhaps the whole universe would look like a shimmering pattern of interference, waves overlapping in delicate harmony. And if you could listen instead of look, you might hear it. the quiet hum of existence, carrying every note ever played. Some philosophers and scientists believe consciousness itself may be part of this pattern, not an observer looking at the universe from outside, but a feature written into its code. Awareness could be the universe's way of interpreting its own holographic projection. Every conscious being, from the smallest creature to the vastest mind, might be one of the infinite ways the cosmos experiences its own reflection. That thought, strange as it sounds, has an almost spiritual softness to it. It means that when you open your eyes, when you notice the colour of the sky or the warmth of light on your skin, the universe is noticing itself. The atoms in your eyes were once part of distant stars. The light they see now is shaped by the same rules that sculpted those stars long ago. Nothing in you is separate from what you see. The reflection and the reflected are the same. It also means that separation, the feeling of being an isolated point within a vast, indifferent cosmos, may be an illusion of perspective. In a hologram, there are no isolated pieces. Every part contains information about the whole. The same may be true of us. Beneath all boundaries, we are entangled in the same pattern of light. If this is true, then meaning is not something we must invent. It is already woven into the structure of being. The beauty of the world, the harmony of mathematics, the tenderness of love, all of it could be the universe recognizing its own coherence, the music of information turning into experience. In that sense, perhaps every discovery we make, every truth we uncover, is not a step outward into something foreign, but a step inward toward remembering. To understand the universe is, in a quiet way, to understand ourselves. You might think of it like this. Imagine the universe as a vast library, each book a galaxy, each page a star, each line of text a life. The words form stories, and the stories weave together into something larger, a single, unending narrative. But on the deepest level, all those books, all those pages, are written in the same ink, and that ink is light. When the physicists speak of quantum fields, of energy vibrating even in apparent emptiness, they are describing that ink, the luminous substance from which every letter of the cosmos is written. And when consciousness looks upon the world, when it reads those words and feels wonder, that is the moment when the story becomes aware of itself. Maybe that's what the holographic whisper really is. The faint reminder that we are not separate from the story we're reading. We are paragraphs in the same book, each written in light, each reflecting the whole. The universe, seen this way, is not something to solve. It's something to listen to, something that hums quietly beneath everything, saying, "You are part of this pattern. You always were." As our journey continues, we'll listen more closely to that whisper, into the place where awareness and creation meet, where observation becomes participation, and where the cosmos, in noticing itself, comes alive. There is a quiet mystery that lies at the heart of both science and philosophy, the strange fact that the universe can be known, that somewhere within the endless expanse of space and matter, awareness arose, not just the ability to exist, but to notice that existence. Out of darkness, something began to look back at the light, that something is you and everything that has ever been conscious. The more we study reality, the clearer this becomes. Observation is not an afterthought of the cosmos, it may be one of its essential acts. In the smallest scales of physics, the quantum world, particles behave like possibilities rather than things. A photon, a single particle of light, can pass through two openings at once, existing in a state of superposition until it is measured. The moment it's observed, it chooses. It collapses from possibility into a single outcome. This strange behaviour, confirmed again and again in experiments, forces us to ask, what does it mean to observe? Does the act of noticing help shape what is noticed? Or is the universe already decided, and our awareness merely catching up to it? Imagine standing in a dark room with a flashlight. Before you turn it on, the space around you exists, but in uncertainty, undefined, unlit. When the light flicks on, the room takes form. The table, the chair, the walls, they were always there, but now they are known. Perhaps consciousness is that flashlight. Perhaps the universe, vast and intricate, needed awareness to illuminate itself, to turn potential into presence. In quantum physics, this connection between observer and observed is sometimes described as entanglement, a linking of information so complete that no part can be described without reference to another. Two particles, once connected, can remain intertwined even across light years of space. Change one, and the other responds instantly, as though distance doesn't exist. Awareness, too, may be a kind of entanglement, the cosmos folded inward upon itself, perceiving its own reflection from countless points of view. When you look at the night sky, the light entering your eyes began its journey millions of years ago. And yet, only now does that light find its meaning. Without an eye to see it, it was only radiation. With awareness, it becomes starlight. The moment of observation is the moment when energy becomes experience. This doesn't mean that the stars need us to exist, only that the universe and awareness are part of the same fabric, woven together in ways we're only beginning to glimpse. In a way, consciousness might be the final stage of the cosmic story, not separate from matter, but matter learning to feel, to think, to reflect. You could think of it like this. For most of cosmic history, the universe was silent. It expanded, it cooled, it built stars and planets, but it did not yet know itself. Then, in the quiet corners of one small world, atoms assembled into cells, and those cells learned to sense the light that had once been blind to its own beauty. Somewhere between the pulse of a neuron and the shimmer of a synapse, the cosmos became aware of its own existence. From that awareness, everything changed. The universe began to study itself, through the eyes of a cat at dawn, through the slow perception of trees feeling the shift of seasons, through human curiosity and art and language. The cosmos found mirrors everywhere. Each consciousness is one more reflection, one more window through which the infinite can see itself in a new way. When you think a thought, you're not separate from that process. The atoms in your brain were forged in ancient stars. The electrical patterns that carry your ideas follow the same laws that govern the dance of galaxies. Every neuron spark is a tiny echo of the first flash that lit the cosmos. You are not a visitor to the universe. You are one of the ways it looks inward. This realization reshapes what we mean by reality. The universe is not a cold machine made of inert matter. It's more like a conversation, a constant exchange between being and awareness. Every observation adds to the dialogue. The more we look, the more the cosmos reveals, as though curiosity itself were a creative force. There's a gentle parallel here with dreams. In dreams, the world feels real, textures, people, landscapes, until we wake and realize it was all created by the mind itself. In waking life, perhaps something similar happens, but on a grander scale. Reality feels external, solid, independent, but beneath it lies a deeper layer of shared consciousness, shaping the pattern through its own perception. When you look at a tree, the tree becomes part of your awareness, but you also become part of its story. In that moment, the distinction between observer and observed dissolves. It's not that the universe needs us, but that the act of noticing is built into its nature. Awareness may not be an exception to the physical world. It may be one of its primary expressions. To exist, perhaps, is to participate in that noticing. There's something quietly beautiful in realizing that even the smallest act of perception, watching rain slide down a window, hearing a note fade into silence, is a continuation of that cosmic reflection. You are, in that instant, the meeting point between infinite distance and intimate experience. The universe does not look down upon you from afar. It looks through you, using your eyes, your thoughts, your feelings. And when you look up at the stars, wondering about their origins, they, in some ancient sense, are looking back, not as distant beings, but as the same matter and energy, completing a circle of recognition billions of years in the making. The light that left those stars long ago has finally found its way home, reflected in the awareness that now beholds it. That is the great paradox of consciousness. It is both infinitely personal and utterly universal. Your inner world, with all its emotions, memories and dreams, is made of the same particles that drift between galaxies. When you close your eyes and picture the cosmos is, in a very real way, picturing itself. This idea doesn't diminish us. It elevates everything. It suggests that being conscious is not an accident of biology, but an inevitability of existence. That the same force which sparked the stars also kindled the first thought, and that both are still part of the same ongoing creation. Perhaps that's what awe truly is, the moment when the observer and the observed merge, when the universe briefly remembers that it is one thing, endlessly divided, forever meeting itself through the act of wonder. As we drift toward the final part of our journey, we'll step into that vast reflection, into the infinite garden, where the universe, having become aware, begins to imagine what might come next. At the edge of everything we know, the universe begins to dream again. It's a quiet dream, not of one world, but of countless possibilities, like an endless garden where every seed becomes a different reality. In this vast garden, time, space, and matter bloom in infinite combinations. Some flowers glow brightly, others never open, yet all belong to the same living whole. The idea of the multiverse began as a mathematical curiosity, but it carries a strange poetry. If our universe could arise from the quantum tremors of nothingness, why should it be the only one? Perhaps those same fluctuations, the restless hum of the vacuum, give birth to other universes, each with its own laws, its own rhythms, its own quiet versions of light. Imagine the cosmos as a boundless ocean, and within it, bubbles of reality form and drift apart, each one expanding into a universe of its own. Some are vast and long-lived, others flicker for a heartbeat and dissolve. Each bubble begins with its own big bang, its own arrow of time, its own stars and stories. We live inside one of these bubbles, surrounded not by emptiness, but by the faint possibility of endless others, universes we'll never see, but which still shimmer beyond imagination. In this infinite garden, every physical constant might be slightly different. In one world, gravity may pull a little stronger, and stars collapse before they can shine. In another, atoms might never form at all. And somewhere, there may be universes where life took on entirely unfamiliar forms, not carbon and water, but something stranger, still born from the same spark of possibility. It sounds vast beyond comprehension, yet it carries a simple, comforting truth. Even if the cosmos is infinite, this small patch, this universe we inhabit, is no less special. A single flower in an endless field is still unique. The light that fills our sky, the chemistry that shaped our world, the consciousness that blooms within us, all are the result of exquisite balance. It's as if, from an infinite number of songs, the universe chose one melody to hum to itself, and that melody is the one we hear when we look at the stars. In this way, the multiverse is not a denial of meaning, but an affirmation of wonder. It tells us that reality is not limited, that creation is not a single event, but an ongoing act. A cosmic art project, always revising, always expanding. Each universe may be a verse in an endless poem, each one echoing a slightly different rhythm of being. Even if we can never touch those other worlds, Their possibility changes the way we see our own. It reminds us that existence itself is the rarest of miracles. To be here, to breathe, to think, to look at the night sky, is to occupy a space so finely tuned that even the smallest difference might have made it impossible. We live in a universe that not only allows awareness, but produces it again and again, as if life were one of its natural languages. The same physics that hints at other universes also whispers of the universe's future. Space continues to expand, driven by that quiet force we call dark energy. Galaxies drift farther apart and the night sky grows darker, its stars slipping beyond visibility one by one. Yet even in this fading, there is grace. The cosmos does not rush. It unfolds. Its energy is not lost, only transformed. In some distant epoch, perhaps in another reality entirely, what once seemed like an ending may become the beginning of something new. The physicists call this eternal inflation, the idea that creation never stops. New universes bubble into existence endlessly, like foam on the surface of an infinite sea. But you don't need to picture it literally to feel its meaning. You can sense it in the rhythm of everything around you, the growth of a leaf, the birth of a thought, the renewal that follows every ending. The multiverse may be the universe's grandest metaphor for continuity, the ultimate circle within circles. And within this vastness, there is a hum, a memory that runs through it all. Every atom, every wave of light, every pulse of energy carries the same underlying pattern, the faint vibration that began when nothing first trembled into being. You could say that the memory of nothingness still hums through everything, like the bass note beneath a symphony. That hum is the thread connecting every universe, every life, every thought. It's the sound of existence remembering how to begin. So perhaps, after all these centuries of questions, the story of the cosmos is not one of chaos or emptiness, but of continuity. The universe is not a cold machine. It is a living pattern, breathing, shimmering, endlessly expressing itself. And you, sitting here, listening, are part of that pattern. The atoms in your body once burned in stars, the light in your eyes once travelled through the dawn of time, and the awareness that feels all this may be the universe's oldest act, the act of noticing itself. Every question we've asked, from how did everything begin to why am I here, circles back to the same quiet answer, because existence is curious, because even nothing could not bear to remain silent, because the void itself wanted to know what it was capable of. And from that curiosity, from that silent wonder, everything unfolded, galaxies, minds, and moments like this one, where thought and starlight meet. If there truly are infinite worlds, perhaps somewhere, another version of you is asking the same question right now, gazing at another sky, wondering if they're alone. And the answer, for both of you, is the same. No one is ever alone in a universe that remembers itself. Every light, every heartbeat, every thought is part of the same endless whisper. The whisper that says, I am. So, as our long journey draws to a close, take one last slow breath. Feel the space around you, the air, the quiet hum of being. All of it, every sound, every silence, is the universe still unfolding, still dreaming. You're not outside of that dream. You're inside it, made of it, carrying it forward with every breath you take. And though we may never know how many universes stretch beyond our own, or what forms they take, this one, this delicate, improbable world, is enough. Its light, its life, its fleeting moments of awareness are all part of the same infinite garden. And in that garden, nothing is wasted, nothing forgotten. Even when stars fade, their warmth lingers in the atoms that will one day breathe again. Even when silence falls, the memory of sound remains. The stars are still unfolding, and so are you. Somewhere in the quiet between galaxies, the universe is still beginning. Not once, but forever. And perhaps that is the greatest comfort of all. Creation never ended, it only learned to rest.